Dog bites neighbor's pant leg and is locked up for 5 years. Then a stranger discovers shocking truth. The rusty wire mesh of the chicken coop sagged under the weight of neglect, its once bright green paint peeling away like sunburnt skin. Inside, amidst the dust and scattered feathers, a huddled shape stirred. It was Buster, a once vibrant golden retriever, now a shadow of his former self. 5 years had passed since he'd been banished to this prison. His crime, a playful nip at the neighbor's pant leg. Buster's fur, once a gleaming gold, was now a matted mess, the color of dried mud. It clung to his gaunt frame, reeking of stale straw and chicken droppings. His eyes, once sparkling with mischief, were dull and sunken, reflecting the despair that had consumed him. He flinched at the slightest sound, his body trembling with a deep-seated fear that had become his constant companion. The coop, meant for a flock of bustling hens, was Buster's whole world. The wire walls offered no comfort, only a constant reminder of his isolation. The sun beat down mercilessly in the summer, turning the coop into an oven. In the winter, the biting wind whistled through the gaps, chilling him to the bone. He had no blanket, no soft bed, only the hard-packed dirt floor to rest his weary bones. Food came irregularly, a haphazard mix of leftover scraps and stale dog food tossed into a rusty bowl. Water, when it was provided, was often dirty and green with algae. Hunger gnawed at his belly, a constant reminder of his abandonment. He'd long forgotten the taste of a juicy bone or the joy of a playful tug-of-war. Buster's days were an endless cycle of monotony. He would lie curled in a corner, his nose tucked under his tail, trying to shut out the world. Sometimes he would pace restlessly, his claws scraping against the wire mesh, a futile attempt to escape his prison. The chickens, his only companions, clucked and pecked around him, oblivious to his misery. He remembered a time before the coop, a time of warmth and affection. He remembered the soft caress of a hand, the joyful sound of a child's laughter, the thrill of chasing squirrels in the park. Those memories were now like faded photographs, their edges blurred by time and pain. One day, a shadow fell across the entrance of the coop. A pair of worn work boots stepped into view. Buster cowered in the corner, his heart pounding. He growled, a low rumble in his throat, his only defense against a world that had shown him nothing but cruelty. He didn't know it then, but this was the beginning of his journey back to the light. The worn work boots belonged to a weathered old man named Tom Riley, a Vietnam veteran who lived a solitary life on the outskirts of a small town in Oregon. Tom had seen his share of hardship and loss, and his heart ached for any creature suffering. He'd heard whispers about the neglected dog locked away in the old Henderson place, a property that had fallen into disrepair since the elderly couple passed away a few years back. Their son, a gruff and reclusive man named Frank, had inherited the house but rarely visited, leaving the property to decay. Tom couldn't shake the image of the dog, trapped and forgotten. It reminded him of the loneliness he'd felt after returning from the war, the feeling of being abandoned and misunderstood. He decided to do something about it. He approached the coop cautiously, his voice soft and reassuring. "Hey there, fella," he said, his hand outstretched. "It's all right. I'm not gonna hurt ya." Buster snarled, his teeth bared. He backed further into the corner, his eyes filled with suspicion. He'd learned to distrust humans, their touch often associated with pain or neglect. Tom didn't give up. He brought a bowl of fresh water and some scraps of meat, placing them near the entrance of the coop. "There you go, boy," he said gently. "Something to fill your belly." Buster watched him warily, his hunger battling with his fear. He crept forward slowly, his senses on high alert. He sniffed the food cautiously, then devoured it in a matter of seconds, his starved body craving sustenance. Tom continued his visits, day after day. He would sit by the coop, talking softly to Buster, telling him stories of his life, his voice a soothing balm to the dog's wounded spirit. He brought toys, old tennis balls, and chew ropes, hoping to spark a flicker of joy in those sad eyes. Slowly, Ever so slowly, Buster began to respond. He would wag his tail tentatively when Tom approached, his growls becoming less frequent. He would even take treats from Tom's hand, his touch no longer met with aggression. One day, as Tom sat by the coop, Buster crept forward and rested his head on Tom's knee. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to Tom. He gently stroked Buster's matted fur, feeling the bones beneath his touch. "It's all right, boy," he whispered. "You're safe now." Tom knew he couldn't leave Buster in that coop. He had to get him out to give him a chance at a real life. But first, he needed to gain Buster's trust completely, to show him that not all humans were cruel. He knew it would be a long road, but he was determined to help this forgotten prisoner find his way back to the world. Before the darkness of the chicken coop, before the gnawing hunger and the chilling loneliness, Buster had known a life filled with love and laughter. He was the beloved companion of a young boy named Ethan, a whirlwind of energy with a mop of sandy hair and a smile that could melt the coldest heart. Ethan and Buster were inseparable. They spent their days exploring the woods behind their house, chasing butterflies, and splashing in the creek. Buster, a playful and energetic puppy, was always by Ethan's side, his tail wagging furiously, his tongue lolling out in a perpetual grin. Ethan's parents, John and Mary, had gifted Buster to Ethan on his 8th birthday. It was love at first sight. Ethan had named him Buster after his favorite comic book hero, a brave and loyal dog who always fought for justice. Buster thrived in the warmth of their family. He slept at the foot of Ethan's bed, his soft fur a comforting presence. He joined them on family picnics, his enthusiastic barks echoing through the park. He was their furry guardian, their confidant, their source of unconditional love. But their idyllic life was shattered one fateful afternoon. Ethan and Buster were playing in the front yard when their neighbor, Mr. Henderson, a grumpy old man with a reputation for being unpleasant, marched across the lawn, his face contorted in anger. "Your mutt just tore a hole in my new trousers," he bellowed, brandishing a pair of khaki pants with a small tear near the cuff. "That dog is a menace. You need to keep him on a leash." Ethan, startled by Mr. Henderson's outburst, tried to explain that Buster was just playing, that he didn't mean any harm. But Mr. Henderson was in no mood for explanations. He shook his fist at Ethan and stormed back to his house, muttering threats under his breath. Later that day, John, concerned about Mr. Henderson's anger, decided to take Buster for a walk in the woods, hoping to avoid any further confrontation. But as they passed Mr. Henderson's property, Buster, excited by the scent of squirrels, darted towards the fence, barking playfully. Mr. Henderson, who happened to be in his garden, saw Buster and flew into a rage. He grabbed a rake and charged towards the fence, yelling at Buster to get away. Buster, startled by the sudden aggression, nipped at Mr. Henderson's pant leg, his teeth barely grazing the fabric. That was all it took. Mr. Henderson, fueled by years of pent-up frustration and a deep dislike of dogs, saw this as an act of aggression. He called the animal control, accusing Buster of being a dangerous animal. John pleaded with the officers, explaining that Buster was just a playful puppy, that he didn't mean to hurt anyone. But Mr. Henderson's exaggerated account of the incident, coupled with his influence in the small town, sealed Buster's fate. Buster was deemed a threat to public safety and ordered to be confined. John, heartbroken and helpless, watched as his beloved dog was taken away, his pleas for leniency falling on deaf ears. He never imagined that this would be the last time he would see Buster for a very long time. The world shrunk. The boundless expanse of woods, the sun-dappled trails, the thrill of the chase, all vanished, replaced by the suffocating confines of the chicken coop. Buster, bewildered and terrified, paced the length of his prison, his frantic barks echoing unanswered. The initial days were a blur of confusion and despair. He whined for Ethan, his voice growing hoarse with each passing hour. He searched for familiar scents, for the comforting presence of his family, but found only the pungent odor of chicken droppings and decaying wood. The food, when it came, was a meager offering: stale bread crusts, scraps of unknown origin, sometimes nothing at all. Hunger gnawed at his belly, a constant ache that overshadowed everything else. He lapped at the dirty water, his thirst overpowering his disgust. He tried to understand. Why was he here? What had he done? He remembered the incident with the grumpy old man, the tug at the pant leg, but it seemed a trivial offense compared to this harsh punishment. As days turned into weeks, despair settled over him like a heavy blanket. His playful energy waned, replaced by a listless apathy. He spent most of his time huddled in a corner, his eyes closed, his body trembling. The world outside the coop, with its vibrant colors and enticing sounds, became a distant memory. He watched the chickens, their lives a constant flurry of activity, scratching, pecking, clucking. They seemed oblivious to his misery, their world confined to the dusty floor of the coop. He envied their freedom, their simple existence. Sometimes, a face would appear at the wire mesh, a weathered, unfamiliar face. A gruff voice would mutter something unintelligible, accompanied by the clatter of a rusty bowl. Buster would cower in the corner, his fear amplified by these infrequent intrusions. He no longer barked, no longer wagged his tail. He had become a ghost of his former self, a prisoner trapped in a cage of his own making. The playful puppy, full of life and joy, was gone, replaced by a creature consumed by fear and loneliness. The coop became his tomb, a silent testament to his forgotten existence. The sun rose and set, the seasons changed, but Buster remained unchanged, trapped in a perpetual state of despair. He was a prisoner of circumstance, a victim of human cruelty, his spirit slowly withering away. The arrival of Sarah was like a ray of sunshine piercing through the gloom of Buster's prison. Sarah, a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle touch, was a volunteer at the local animal shelter. She had heard about Buster's plight from Tom, who had been tirelessly advocating for the dog's release. Sarah was no stranger to neglected and abused animals. She had a knack for connecting with them, for understanding their pain and fear. She saw in Buster not a dangerous beast, but a broken soul in desperate need of compassion. Her first encounter with Buster was met with the same fear and aggression that had greeted Tom. Buster snarled, his teeth bared, his body trembling. But Sarah was undeterred. She sat outside the coop, her voice soft and soothing, speaking to him as one would to a frightened child. "It's okay, Buster," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help." She brought him treats, small pieces of cooked chicken and soft dog biscuits. She placed them near the entrance of the coop, her movements slow and deliberate, avoiding any sudden gestures that might startle him. Buster watched her with suspicion, his instincts telling him to be wary. But the enticing aroma of the food was too much to resist. He crept forward cautiously, his body tense, his eyes darting between Sarah and the treats. He snatched a piece of chicken, devouring it in a single gulp. He looked at Sarah, his eyes questioning, his tail giving a tentative wag. Sarah smiled, her heart melting at the sight of this small victory. Day after day, Sarah continued her visits. She would sit outside the coop, reading to Buster, her voice a calming presence in his lonely world. She would sing softly, her melodies weaving a spell of tranquility around him. She brought him toys, soft plush toys that he could cuddle, and sturdy chew toys to satisfy his need to gnaw. She would toss them gently into the coop, encouraging him to play, to rediscover the joy that had been stolen from him. Slowly, Buster began to trust her. He would wag his tail eagerly when he saw her, his growls replaced by soft whimpers of anticipation. He would take treats from her hand, his touch no longer met with aggression. One day, Sarah decided to try something different. She brought a soft blanket, placing it near the entrance of the coop. "Here you go, Buster," she said gently. "Something to keep you warm." Buster hesitated, his eyes wary. He sniffed the blanket cautiously. Then, to Sarah's delight, he curled up on it, his body relaxing for the first time in years. Sarah knew that this was a turning point. Buster was starting to let go of his fear, to embrace the possibility of human kindness. She was determined to help him heal, to show him that the world was not just a place of pain and confinement. Despite the glimmer of hope ignited by Sarah's kindness, Buster's journey to recovery was far from smooth. Years of neglect and confinement had left deep scars on his psyche. He remained wary of human touch, flinching at sudden movements and loud noises. The coop, once his prison, had become his sanctuary, a familiar space where he felt safe, however miserable. The prospect of leaving it filled him with terror. He would cower in the corner whenever Sarah tried to coax him out, his eyes wide with panic. Sarah, patient and understanding, refused to give up. She enlisted the help of Tom and a few other volunteers from the shelter. They devised a plan to gradually introduce Buster to the outside world, starting with short walks in the fenced-in area behind the shelter. The first attempt was a disaster. Buster, overwhelmed by the unfamiliar sights and sounds, panicked. He pulled at the leash, his body trembling, his eyes darting frantically. He tried to bolt to escape back to the perceived safety of his coop. It took all of Sarah's strength and Tom's calm reassurance to get him back to the shelter. Buster, exhausted and terrified, retreated to the furthest corner of his kennel, his body shaking uncontrollably. Sarah was heartbroken. She had underestimated the depth of Buster's trauma. She realized that it would take more than just kindness and patience to help him overcome his fear. She needed to find a way to break down the walls he had built around himself, to show him that the world was not a threat. She consulted with a veterinarian specializing in animal behavior. The vet suggested a combination of medication to help manage Buster's anxiety and a structured training program to build his confidence and trust. Sarah dedicated herself to Buster's rehabilitation. She spent hours with him every day, working on basic obedience commands, rewarding him with praise and treats for every small success. She took him on short walks, gradually increasing the distance and exposure to different environments. She introduced him to other dogs, carefully selecting calm and friendly companions. At first, Buster was hesitant, his fear of social interaction evident. But with Sarah's encouragement and the patient guidance of the other dogs, he began to relax, to rediscover the joy of canine companionship. The process was slow and arduous, filled with setbacks and frustrations. But Sarah never wavered in her belief that Buster could heal. She saw glimpses of his old self, the playful puppy who loved to chase squirrels and cuddle with his humans. She knew that with time and love, he could reclaim that lost part of himself. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Buster began to change. The trembling subsided, replaced by a newfound confidence. The fearful glances were replaced by curious exploration. He started to wag his tail again, not just at the sight of food, but at the sound of Sarah's voice, at the touch of her hand. He began to enjoy his walks, his gait shifting from a hesitant shuffle to a joyful trot. He would sniff the ground with enthusiasm, his nose twitching at the myriad of scents. He would chase butterflies in the meadow, his old playful spirit re-emerging. He even started to play with the other dogs at the shelter, engaging in playful chases and mock fights. He learned to trust again, to form bonds with other creatures, to experience the joy of companionship. One evening, as Sarah was preparing to leave for the day, Buster did something unexpected. He nudged her hand with his nose, his eyes filled with a pleading that Sarah couldn't ignore. He wanted her to stay, to spend more time with him. Sarah sat down beside him, her heart swelling with emotion. She wrapped her arms around him, feeling the warmth of his fur against her skin. Buster leaned into her embrace, his head resting on her lap. It was a moment of profound connection, a silent understanding that transcended words. In that moment, the walls of fear that had surrounded Buster for so long finally crumbled. He was no longer a prisoner of his past, but a creature filled with hope and love. Sarah knew that Buster was ready for the next step, the step that would truly set him free, finding a loving home. She started to search for the perfect family, one that would understand his past, cherish his spirit, and give him the love and security he deserved. She found them in the Miller family, a kind and compassionate couple with 2 young children, a boy and a girl who had always dreamed of having a dog. They were drawn to Buster's story, his resilience and his gentle spirit. The first meeting was a cautious affair. Buster, still wary of new people, approached the Millers with hesitation. But the children, with their infectious laughter and playful energy, quickly won him over. They showered him with affection, their small hands gently stroking his fur. The Millers were patient and understanding. They gave Buster the space he needed to adjust, the reassurance he craved. They took him on walks in the park, played fetch in the backyard, and included him in their family activities. Slowly, Buster blossomed in their care. He rediscovered the joy of being part of a family, the comfort of a loving home. He became the protector of the children, their loyal companion, their furry confidant. The shadows of the past began to fade, replaced by the warmth of the present. Buster had finally found his happy ending, a testament to the resilience of the spirit and the healing power of love. The Millers' home was a haven of warmth and laughter. Their house, a cozy 2-story with a sprawling backyard, became Buster's new playground. He chased squirrels with Emily, the energetic 6-year-old, and played tug-of-war with 10-year-old David. He learned to fetch the newspaper, much to the amusement of Mr. Miller, and he became an expert at snuggling on the couch with Mrs. Miller during movie nights. Life was filled with simple pleasures. Morning walks in the park, afternoon naps in sunbeams, evening cuddles with the children. Buster thrived on the routine, the predictability, the sense of belonging. He learned to trust again, to love without fear. The Millers were attentive to his needs, sensitive to his past. They understood his anxieties, his occasional flinching at sudden movements, his wariness of strangers. They never pushed him, never forced him to do anything that made him uncomfortable. They enrolled him in obedience classes not to discipline him, but to build his confidence and strengthen their bond. He excelled in the classes, his eagerness to please evident in every wag of his tail, every attentive glance. He became a fixture in the neighborhood, a beloved member of the community. He joined the Millers on their trips to the local farmers market, where he charmed the vendors with his gentle demeanor. He accompanied them on hikes in the nearby woods, his spirit soaring as he explored the trails, his nose leading the way. The children, Emily and David, adored him. He was their playmate, their protector, their confidant. They shared their secrets with him, their fears, their dreams. He listened patiently, his big brown eyes filled with understanding. One day, while playing in the backyard, Emily tripped and fell, scraping her knee. Buster, ever vigilant, rushed to her side, licking her tears, his presence a comforting balm. He stayed by her side until her tears subsided, his furry body a source of warmth and reassurance. David, who had always been a bit shy and reserved, found a true friend in Buster. He confided in Buster about his struggles at school, his anxieties about making friends. Buster listened without judgment, his presence a source of comfort and support. The Millers often marveled at how lucky they were to have found Buster. He had brought so much joy into their lives, so much love. He had taught them the true meaning of companionship, the unconditional love that only a dog can offer. Buster, in turn, was grateful for the second chance he had been given. He had found a family who loved him, a home where he felt safe and cherished. He had finally found his place in the world, a place where he could be himself, a place where he could simply be Buster. Life with the Millers was a peaceful haven, but the past had a way of casting long shadows. One sunny afternoon, while walking Buster in the park, the Millers encountered a familiar figure, a gruff, elderly man with a cane, his face etched with the lines of bitterness. It was Mr. Henderson. Buster, sensing the shift in the Miller's demeanor, tensed. He recognized the man, the scent of his stale tobacco and mothballs triggering a deep-seated fear within him. He let out a low growl, his body instinctively recoiling. Mr. Henderson, his eyes narrowed, pointed his cane at Buster. "That's the vicious beast that attacked me," he exclaimed, his voice filled with venom. "He should have been put down years ago." The Millers were taken aback by the outburst. They tried to explain that Buster was a gentle dog, that he had been rehabilitated, but Mr. Henderson refused to listen. He launched into a tirade about irresponsible dog owners and dangerous animals, his words laced with prejudice and fear. David, emboldened by his love for Buster, stepped forward. "He's not a vicious beast," he declared, his voice trembling but firm. "He's a good dog. He would never hurt anyone." Mr. Henderson scoffed. "You don't know what you're talking about, boy," he said dismissively. "That dog is a menace. He's a danger to society." Emily, her eyes filled with tears, clung to Buster's fur. "Don't listen to him, Buster," she whispered. "He's wrong. You're a good boy." The Millers, realizing that further argument was futile, decided to leave. They pulled Buster away, his body still tense, his eyes fixed on Mr. Henderson. The encounter left a lingering unease. It was a stark reminder of the injustice Buster had suffered, the prejudice he had faced. The Millers worried that the incident might trigger a regression in Buster's progress, that the fear and anxiety might return. But Buster, to their surprise, seemed unfazed. He had faced his past, his fear, and had emerged stronger. He had found love and acceptance, and that was all that mattered. The Millers, inspired by Buster's resilience, decided to take action. They organized a community event, a dog day in the park, to promote responsible dog ownership and raise awareness about animal welfare. They invited local shelters, trainers, and veterinarians to participate. The event was a huge success. Families brought their dogs, children played games, and experts shared their knowledge. Buster, the guest of honor, charmed everyone with his gentle demeanor and playful spirit. Mr. Henderson, observing the festivities from afar, was surprised by the outpouring of love and support for dogs. He saw Buster, surrounded by children, his tail wagging happily, and a flicker of understanding crossed his face. Perhaps he thought he had been wrong all along. The dog day in the park became an annual tradition, a celebration of the human-animal bond, a testament to the healing power of love and compassion. And Buster, the once forgotten prisoner, became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, love can find a way. Years passed, seasons changed, and the once vibrant golden retriever gradually turned silver around his muzzle. Buster, now a senior dog, moved with a slower grace, his playful sprints replaced by leisurely strolls. But his spirit remained young, his love for the Millers unwavering. He had become an integral part of their family fabric, a silent witness to their lives. He had seen Emily and David grow from playful children into thoughtful teenagers, their childhood laughter echoing in the hallways of their memory. He had been there for their triumphs and their heartbreaks, a constant source of comfort and support. He had celebrated birthdays, graduations, and holidays with the Millers, his presence a cherished tradition. He had even welcomed a new addition to the family, a mischievous kitten named Luna, who, despite initial hesitation, had become his unlikely friend. Buster's story had touched the hearts of many in the community. He was a regular visitor at the local nursing home, his gentle presence bringing joy to the elderly residents. He participated in therapy sessions at the children's hospital, his calm demeanor soothing anxious hearts. He had even become a local celebrity, his story featured in the local newspaper and on the evening news. He was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the transformative power of love and compassion. But time, as it always does, marched on. Buster's walks became shorter, his naps longer. His once bright eyes grew cloudy, his hearing faded. The Millers, their hearts heavy, knew that their beloved companion was nearing the end of his journey. They showered him with love and attention, cherishing every moment they had left with him. They made him comfortable, his favorite blanket spread out by the fireplace, his bed nestled beside theirs. One crisp autumn evening, surrounded by the warmth of his family, Buster peacefully drifted off to sleep, his head resting on Emily's lap, his body gently held by David. The Millers, their hearts filled with grief but also with gratitude, whispered their love and farewells. Buster's passing left a void in their lives, a silence that echoed through the house. But his memory lived on, woven into the fabric of their family history. He was remembered in the laughter of the children, in the stories they shared, in the photographs that adorned their walls. His legacy extended beyond the Miller family. The annual Dog Day in the park continued, a tribute to his spirit, a reminder of the importance of animal welfare. The local shelter, inspired by his story, expanded its programs, offering rehabilitation and training to countless neglected and abused animals. Buster, the once forgotten prisoner, had left an indelible mark on the world. He had taught them about resilience, about forgiveness, about the enduring power of love. He had shown them that even in the face of adversity, the human-animal bond could heal, could transform, could inspire. And so his story lived on, a testament to the extraordinary love of an ordinary dog, a legacy of love that would endure for generations to come.